Climb into your heart on twisted.
Alvarez swings, makes one throw, deep left center field. Mullins looks up, and it's out of here.
Good morning, Mets family. You already know it's your boy Rasheed McDonald, and today is April 16th, 2025. And this afternoon, the New York Mets will be taking on the Minnesota Twins in the final game of a 3-game set, and they'll be looking to win their 5th straight series in a row. Now, last night wasn't the best pitching-wise. However, there's a lot good to talk about when you think about offensively and what is to come for this New York Mets team. So ya tu sabe, let's get to the highlights. Mets looking to win their 5th consecutive series in a row, but they're going to have to get through Bailey Ober to do that. Early in the top of the first, Pete Alonso. Put some respect on my name. His 4th home run of the season, his 20th RBI as well. Mets up 1-0. Bottom third, Twins threatening, and Ty France right back up the middle, and Francisco Lindor can't make the play. That'll tie up the game at 1 apiece. No problem. Juan Soto here to deliver, and he goes deep to tie the game at 2. Maybe that'll get the people to quiet the noise a little bit. Anyways, bottom 4, Harrison Bader, former Met, screaming up the line. That'll give the Twins the lead as Vientos can't make the play. Twins are in business, looking to add on some more runs. Ty France again, right back up the middle, and Byron Buxton. Ain't a lot of people fast in the game like him. Man, by the hair of Jenny Jen Jen. Jeffers will go corner, and that will get the party started in the bottom of the 6th for the Twins. Edward Julian. Yes, Edward Julian. American flow goes right back to the gap, and that will add another run for the Twins. 5-2. Picking it up, bottom 7, 5-3. That one ain't coming back. Brooks Lee. Twins win the game 6-3. This afternoon, the New York Mets will be taking on David Festa. And David Festa is someone who didn't have such a good season last season. I mean, he made 13 starts for the Minnesota Twins, had a 4.90 ERA, and so we're looking for the Mets to just attack early, right? That really hasn't been the approach offensively for this team, and I think they need to start taking that approach. Speaking about the offense, let's get into a little bit of what has been looking good. Pete Alonso, again, continues to absolutely tear the cover off of the baseball, and that's good for him, right? Because there was so much of this conversation and this nonsense that will continue, right? Because when teams have these big expectations, you know, you have to find topics and you have to find things to talk about. And so yesterday, they found something to talk about. And listen, Juan Soto, again, was just giving an honest answer. And we're just going to leave it at that. We're going to move on, right? Because this is a good team. This is a team that's, 5 games over 500. Man, listen, let's keep it moving, right? We got the Cardinals coming up at home and then the Phillies after that, right? Let's get into a little bit more of the offense. Luisangel Acuna, right? We've been saying that somebody needs to run away with the second base position. And now that there's an injury in center field, this goes back to what I was saying with the value, the maximum value you can get out of someone like a Jeff McNeil. And this is exactly where he falls into place. And I know it's going to sound crazy because we're talking about a former batting champion, someone that, honestly speaking, deserves the benefit of the doubt. But right now, his best attribute is that he can play multiple positions. Why are we going to play some young guys out of position when we can put someone in there who has the experience to play, right? The Mets can slot over Brandon Nimmo until they figure out what they're going to do long term in center field, and they could put Jeff McNeil in left field. That works. That works for me. And you can leave Luis Angel Acuna at second base. And then if you want to, you know, put Tyrone Taylor in center field a couple days, you can move Jeff McNeil to second base, right? And that's fine. But what I'm saying is Luis Angel Acuna needs to play. He needs to play. I'm sorry. He needs to play. And that's the truth, right? So, I think they know that. I think they understand that. And they're going to find some ways to get him in because look at the numbers. Over the last 5 games, we're talking about a 400 batting average, right? He's batting over 1,000 with the OPS, 7 base hits. And he's not trying to hit home runs. What he's doing is he's getting on base, finding ways to get on base. He had a bunt for a hit that went for an error, right? So it was a single and a error that allowed him to go to second base. Then he scored, right? He's been scoring runs, and that's exactly what needs to happen, right? He's stealing bases. He's making it happen on the base paths, and that's what the Mets don't have. So right now, the ability that Luis Angel Acuna has is needed, right? The speed, the stolen base threat, the guy in the bottom of the order who could flip over the lineup for Lindor. That's the guy, right? In my opinion, that's the guy that needs to do that. And, right, if you're talking about, let's pick between, Tyrone Taylor and Jeff McNeil, I'm putting Jeff McNeil in left field and I'm putting Brandon Nimmo in center. Now, if Brandon Nimmo's foot isn't 100% and he cannot play center field, then that makes it a little bit tricky. But Brandon Nimmo's a gamer, and I think he'll be up for the challenge. So you can't ignore the production that you're getting now from second base because we've been asking for it, and now that you're getting it, you can't turn that away. You can't just, Jeff McNeil is back. No, you can't do that. I'm sorry. That would be bad, in my opinion. So I don't think the Mets are going to do that. I think they're going to do the right thing, and they're going to find ways to, get Jeff McNeil at bats, get Acuna at bats, and Brandon Nimmo to play at his optimal best. So we'll see what happens with that. Now that we're talking about Brandon Nimmo and how he fits into the whole equation defensively and what they could do now that with this injury to Jose Siri, I think you have to start looking at his offensive numbers. There was a lot of talk and a lot of conversation about the offense and the lineup, and Brandon Nimmo's name came up a couple times. And here's kind of one of the things that I want to point out for Brandon Nimmo, right? Now, for me, I'm not too big on X stats, right? Which is like expected batting average, expected this, expected that. I'm not with all that. You could get that away from me, like right now. I don't want to. You don't. If you're gonna have a conversation about baseball, don't talk X stats with me. Let's talk about what we can actually see on the field. And what I can actually see on the field, and there's actually numbers to back it up, and I'm glad we have some numbers that can back up these stats for Brandon Nimmo. And right now what we're looking at is average exit velocity, which is at 92.1%, and that puts him in the red if you look at his Baseball Savant page. Now let's look at the barrel percentage. When you barrel up a baseball, you're pretty much hitting it where you're supposed to. The objective is to square up a round ball with a round bat and a cylindrical bat. And that's a pretty hard thing to do, right? As Deion Sanders, he'll tell you. But for Brandon Nimmo, it's at 15.4%, which is fantastic. It's good. You take that right now, right? It's above MLB average. And then hard hit percentage, that's where the good stuff is, right? 55.8% for Brandon Nimmo, and you can look at his percentile where he falls at, and it's good. It's at a good spot, and you like that from Brandon Nimmo, which means he's hitting the ball, but he's hitting it at defenders, and that's hard to get on base when You hit it right at somebody and it's an out, right? It doesn't reflect well on your stats. And, but if you want to make something of it, that's what you make of it. Now let's dig a little bit deeper into these stats for Brandon Nimmo, right? He's squaring up the ball at a very good rate. And that's where all of this comes into play, right? Is he squaring up the ball? Is he hitting it where he's supposed to? If you look at his bat speed, it hasn't changed. If you look at his 3-year average, it's around the same. 72, 73%, 77. Like, it's around the mid to high 70s. And that's where he's been. You would like it to be higher, maybe, 80, but it's fine, right? It's fine. Now, he's squaring up the ball at a very good rate with the percentages. You look at the contact percentage on the square up swings is at 38.5. Again, higher than MLB average. And then blast, which is pretty much the best swing that you could put out there, the contact is at 22%. And he's taking 4 ugly swings, pretty much what they like to call swords, like basically when you look silly. Only 4 so far this season, right? Now, let's put this into context. For context, here's how Major League Baseball defines a squared up, right? Pretty much you're hitting it in a sweet spot, which is the whole thing with these torpedo bats, right? I don't know if Brandon Nimmo's using one, but again, that was the whole hoopla with the torpedo bats. They want to get more squared up to the baseball. And then blasts, which is defined here, is pretty much the highest exit velocity you'll get when you square it up. And they kind of put that into numbers for you. But again, these are things you can see when you're looking at his at-bats and you see that something is hit hard, right? People like to call them worm burners or whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, he's hitting it, but he's hitting it at people. And this goes back to what Carlos Mendoza was talking about, right? With Mark Vientos. He's saying that he hasn't really taken any bad swings, or his swings aren't looking too bad. He's just hitting it at people. It's the same thing for Brandon Nimmo, even though with Mark Vientos is a little bit lower, these numbers. But talking specifically about Brandon Nimmo, let's not focus right now on the batting average because it's not going to reflect high when you see that. But what you can see with the eye test is he's hitting the ball hard. And that's important. So again, I just want to let everybody know there's no need to worry about the main guys in this lineup. The Brandon Nimmos, the Pete Alonsos, the Francisco Lindors, the Juan Sotos. There's no need to worry about them. Yes, with Mark Vientos, you want to hope that he's not having some type of sophomore type of jinx or whatever you want to call it. I think he's going to be fine, right? Once he gets more comfortable, once he does what he has to do, and the hits start to fall for him, then fine. But if you see in this series against Milwaukee, he's taken some good at-bats, right? He's had a single good hit opposite field yesterday, and then he had a double, which, the outfielder threw it to second base with nobody there, and it hit him in the butt. But at the end of the day, Mark Vientos is making good contact. He just has to drop. That's all, right? So we'll see what's going to happen this afternoon. Again, the Mets are going for their 5th consecutive series victory. And then they'll be home to take on the St. Louis Cardinals for 4. And then they'll take on the Philadelphia Phillies, who will be coming into Citi Field for the first time since getting eliminated in the NLDS last season. So you already know when it comes to the Mets, it's always for life.